episode 88 of Board Game Blitz, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network, and a podcast about all things board games that you can listen to in less time than it takes to remember all the games you loved when you were young. Board Game Blitz is sponsored by Gray Fox Games. This week, we are talking about our favorite older games. First, we discuss a couple games we've played recently, like Nine Tiles Panic and Mr. Face. Then, we talk about our top 5 games that we started playing before we were formally introduced to the world of hobby board games. Finally, we wrap things up with a look at the etymology of the word Hasbro. And now, here are your hosts,
Ambie
and Crystal. Normally during our recently played segment, since Ambie lives in California and I live in Nevada, we discuss a different game each. Well, we just happen to have played the same games in recent past. So we are going to do joint reviews of 2 different games for you all today. This is not something that happens pretty much ever. A lot of times we chime in with our thoughts on the other person's game because it's something we've played in the past. But this is the first time, I think, in the history of the podcast that we both played something that was new to us, 2 different games, recently, and want to share our thoughts about them.
Yes, I think so.
3.5 years, and we're finally doing it, y'all. We're real board game podcasters now. So both of the games are by Oink Games, which is a company that Ambie and I have talked about quite a bit in the past, and it is a company that we like a lot of their titles, but they have 2 newer ones. Nine Tiles Panic's definitely brand new. Mr. Face is a little bit older, I think, right?
Yeah, so, Mr. Face came out in 2018, designed by Jun Sasaki, who is the owner of Oink Games. Mr. Face is it's kind of like Dixit. Like, everyone is putting in things and you're trying to guess, the main person's thing. There's a lot of games like that, but basically in Mr. Face, you're making emojis out of these shapes. So there's a circular yellow, or oval yellow cardboard thing, and then you put these little circles and other shapes that are black or white, depending on which way you flip it over, onto it to make a face that shows a certain expression. And so you have a card that has a mood or expression, and then everyone's trying to guess which one it is out of, everyone puts in a card after they see the face that tries to match that mood. But the moods aren't just happy or sad. It's oh no, I forgot my keys, or oh, I left the stove on, or did I?
Or I can't believe he did that. It's very, the words on the cards are definitely, there's a lot of shades of emotion in there.
Yeah.
One of them I think is something that was funny, not. I was because you start reading it, you're they're not amused, never mind.
Yeah.
Everybody else throws in a card from their hand that has a phrase on it that they think matches the face you built, and then everybody has to guess which one was the original phrase that you were building the face off of.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's how the game plays. That's very simple. And you only play a number of rounds equal to the number of players, which I thought was kind of odd, especially if you're playing with less people.
Well, yeah, that way everyone gets to do it once, and then I guess it doesn't overstay its welcome.
It definitely did not overstay its welcome. We played with 4 people, and then we were okay, I guess we're done now. So I really like Dixit, and I like Muse, and I like other games that are kind of like this one, and I was very, very excited about Mr. Face, and I ended up very, very underwhelmed.
It was the opposite for me.
Oh, really?
So when I had seen pictures of it, I was thinking, isn't that going to be really easy? The emotions are just... But because I didn't know what the emotion cards were. But then when I actually play, they're really obscure things, so it's hard to do it. And so I enjoyed it. But I don't know if how much longevity it would have. Okay.
I think for me, it was tough because when there isn't a lot of interest in the cards that you're picking to try to throw into the pot, because in Dixit you are trying to get other people to guess your card and you get points when they do, but in this game, if other people guess the card that you threw into the mix, you don't get anything for that. There's no benefit. So it was just all you're worrying about is picking the right thing, really. You could throw any card out of your hand. I guess the only reason is if other people don't guess the right one, they don't get the point, but
yeah, that's it.
I honestly think I would house rule this in the future and give points to people whose answers got guessed that were the wrong answers. Because just like in Dixit, it feels like you should be wanting to convince people that your answer is the right answer.
Yeah, I think that might make sense too, yeah. But I found myself, while we were playing, they would make the face, and then I would try to make the face, like, myself with my own face, like, trying to make the expression, and then see what I feel like, and try to match that.
Okay, that now I want to play with you, because that sounds like way more fun. We were kind of just like going through the motions on this one, and it did not. I will say there is a variant in the rule book where instead of using the yellow cardboard face, you actually like spin around and face away from the group and take a selfie, and then show the selfie to everyone instead of using the components. And we did not do that, but that might make it a little silly as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Face of the Oink games of the ones I've played is probably near the bottom of my list. I didn't hate it, but it was disappointing for me just because it didn't have a lot of depth and nuance. And especially when in my head, I'm automatically comparing it to games like Dixit, and it doesn't even have all the same things as Dixit. It was hard for me to really fall in love with it.
Yeah. For me, it's probably in the middle of the Oink games. It's really short and quick, so like it didn't overstay its welcome for me, so I liked it. And sometimes the Oink games, like the rounds having multiple rounds make it overstay its welcome, so I don't like them as much. Yeah, that's
true. So the other game that you and I both played, also from Oink Games, is 9 Tiles Panic, which I was very excited about because I love 9 Tiles. You've played 9 Tiles before. You and I have actually played 9 Tiles together.
Yes, 9 Tiles is my favorite Oink game because I like speed games a lot.
Is it my favorite? I think it's probably top 2. I think I like Deep Sea Adventure more, but I really like 9 Tiles. Mm-hmm. So in 9 Tiles Panic, similarly to 9 Tiles, well, I'll explain 9 Tiles briefly, even though we've probably talked about it before. In 9 Tiles, each player gets a set of 9 tiles. Each tile has a simple, colorful image on one side, usually just a basic shape of some kind, like a circle or a flower or a triangle, something like that. And then on the other side will be a different colored shape. There's a deck of cards that have configurations of 9 tiles all displaying different symbols that are on the tiles. You flip a card over, and everyone has to manipulate the tiles in front of themselves to match the pattern shown on the card. And that's it. It's very simple to explain and very difficult to get good at because while there might be an orange circle on the back side of that one blue tile, on the other blue tile, if you look at the back, it's the yellow flower. And you'll flip over a tile expecting one thing and you'll get the other thing. And so it's hard to sometimes find the exact right pattern, but it works really well and it's fun. So in 9 Tiles Panic, they've kind of stepped it up a notch, and instead of just basic shapes, you actually have paths through a city and buildings and police officers and donuts.
Yeah, just different icons on the tiles.
Yeah, like there's hamburgers and aliens, and the aliens want to eat the hamburgers, and the cops are chasing the aliens. Oh, and there's dogs for some reason, too. I mean, I'm not mad about it, but... And you're manipulating those tiles to try and form paths that will meet the conditions of 3 cards that were selected each round. So it might say the most aliens in front of a single cop. And so you want to build the streets so there's a lot of aliens, but only one cop behind them and pointing toward them. Or each alien eating at least one hamburger. And so you want alien burger all over the place. But in addition to the scoring conditions, you also have to have roads that are legally placed, which means they either, they basically have to run to completion off the side of your 9x9 grid. They can't make a loop, and they can't break in the middle of the tiles. There's a bunch of different scoring conditions, and you choose different ones each round. So you're never trying to build the exact same kind of thing, which is what you're doing in normal 9 tiles.
Yeah. So I liked this one. We only played it once, and I heard there's advanced scoring rules too, but I think we only played with the beginner ones, which is like counting how many of each thing there are. But it's similar to 9 tiles, but then it adds like the more spatial aspect because you're trying to make the routes and make sure they're right. So I liked that. I'll need to play it more to see how much I like it, I think. But I don't own it. It was my friend's.
And I picked this one up at Gen Con. I actually pre-ordered it. And I was expecting to love it, and I kind of didn't. And it's a bummer, because Nine Tiles is so pure and so fun. I think the thing that made this one difficult for me to love is the rule regarding the roads specifically, because I'm trying to meet the scoring conditions and also have all of my roads legally placed. And doing that felt very difficult most of the time. Like, in Nine Tiles, you have that moment of frustration where you have, like, one tile that doesn't fit. And then you can kind of just manipulate a single tile in other places to try and find the way to fix it to some degree. But in this game, if you have a tile you can't legally place, you kind of have to throw away the whole thing sometimes to figure out the solution. And it was a little bit more frustrating. In this game, there is a little bit more flexibility in the time, in that when one player completes their city, they flip over a timer, and then you have until the timer runs out to complete yours as well. So it's not like you're just acting off of a timer the whole time, but it was still really hard. And I like real-time games, but this one was more frustrating than I expected it to be, which kind of bummed me out.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot harder than Nine Tiles. So it would be a lot harder to get played than Nine Tiles. So I like Nine Tiles more because it's just so much purer and simpler. But yeah, I like spatial things, as I think I've mentioned before, so I was pretty decent at building those.
There are certain spatial things I'm good at. This is not one of them, clearly.
But yeah, one of my friends was having a lot of trouble, like, making a legal thing, even after the timer ran out and we were, like, already counting scores. He was still trying to, like, make a legal thing. He's like, it won't work. So
I literally was the same way. I was like, oh, I finally did it. I did it. And then Elissa was like, that road right there. And I was like, dang it, no.
Yeah.
So I think I like the idea of this. I like the idea of a more complex Nine Tiles, but it almost feels like there's just a little bit too much going on, like with the hamburgers and the aliens and the dogs. And I get that they have to have all those things for the different scoring conditions. I wonder if I could curate the scoring condition deck to pick out some things that either work well together or are a little bit simpler, so that way I can kind of just get used to things. And I imagine that just like with regular Nine Tiles, with repeated plays, you would kind of remember what was on the backs of certain tiles. Like, okay, that one has the cross in it, that the back is like two of the swoopy roads or whatever. But for a first play, it was very hard. So I am looking forward to trying this one more, but my first impressions were not the best, which was a bummer.
Oh.
I know, it's weird for me to have played 2 new Oink games and come away kind of disappointed.
And I liked them both.
Well, hey, that's good. We don't often get to share both of our opinions on the thing, so.
Yeah.
All right, so that was our thoughts on the 2 new, one new and one slightly less new Oink games, Mr. Face and Nine Tiles Panic. All right, recently we asked people on Twitter what kind of episode they wanted to see from us, and unsurprisingly, people still want lists. Everybody likes lists, and we do too, truthfully. We just don't want to do them too often, but it's been a little while, so we're giving you all a top 5 today, and that is our top 5 pre-hobby games. So what does that mean, Ambie? Because, like, we could have said old games or classic games, but that doesn't really fit with what we're doing today.
Yeah, so we're saying games that we played before we got into modern board games. We've discovered some games after we got into modern board games that were made a long time ago. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, so...
Like, I don't remember when No Thanks was published, but I know it's older, and I think that would probably be on my list if we were just talking about games that were published, like, a decent amount of time ago.
Yeah, and, like, 1830 would be on my list, and... Sherlock Holmes was also pretty old.
Yeah. So these are games that we played before we knew that hobby gaming was even a thing.
Yes.
And I'll say for my list specifically, I also picked games that I still to this day, if you came up to me and asked me to play this, I would play it with you. Like, I still like these games a lot.
Yeah, I would probably still play these if you asked to play. Some of them I do still play.
Oh yeah, me too.
But some of them I haven't played in a while.
At least, well, my top 2 are games that I play with some reasonable frequency, in fact. So
yeah, me too.
That says a lot.
Me too. That's cool. For me, I excluded games that you can play that we played with a 52 card deck because my family played a lot of them. We had like this book that had all of these card games in it. It basically had a bunch of rules for different card games, and we played a lot of card games. So that would just make my list too much to handle. So I excluded those.
Okay. All right, so let's hop in with our number 5.
My number 5 is Mind Maze, which I had forgotten the name of it, but it's a 2-player game published in 1970, designed by Marvin Glass and published by Parker Brothers. So this game, there's this board that's vertical, and it has pegs on it on each side, and you're building a maze with these white sticks that go in between the pegs, and you're building a maze for the other person who can't see it. And each person has a marble and a magnet, so the marble like goes through the other person's maze, and you're like putting the magnet on your side, trying to navigate through the maze and remember where it dropped. So it's like a memory racing game, because after you build the maze, it's whoever like finishes the other person's maze first wins. I used to play this with my brother. I would probably lose most of the time because when you're a kid, 2.5 years is a big difference. but yeah, it's pretty fun.
It sounds fascinating.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this before.
Yeah. The main problem with it is like the components can be kind of iffy. Like sometimes the marble would get stuck if it's not supposed to get stuck. So then you can't really tell if there's a wall there or if it just got stuck. But the other person can tell you like, oh, no, that was okay or something. But yeah, it's pretty hard sometimes. If the other person's really good at building the maze, then it's hard to remember which way it's going. And it would probably be really tough to play now because I think as a kid, my memory was better. Like short-term memory is like really good as a kid, I think. But it's harder now. But I haven't played
short-term memory definitely going the older I get too. So.
Yeah, but that was Mind Maze.
All right, my number 5 is Mall Madness. I imagine this probably doesn't surprise any of you at all. I really love kitschy games from the 80s and 90s. Mall Madness was designed by Michael Gray and released in 1989 by Milton Bradley. It's had a number of editions over the years. It's come out. They've actually continued making it, and the new editions are a little bit more cartoony and like purple in nature. You'd think I would want the purple one, but no, I like my original, like more bland looking color palette. In Mall Madness, you are literally going to the mall and trying to get the best deals on things. You're trying to collect a set of 6 items and get out of the mall before anyone else does. And there's an electronic box in the middle of the table that's shouting out which stores have specials, and you're trying to rush to those stores before everybody else. And it has this a bank that you can get money out of with your little fake credit card. It's dumb, and I don't know if it's... I've always had this, like, weird love and nostalgia from shopping malls. Like, just being able to go to a single place and shop at a bunch of different stores is always something I've enjoyed. And maybe that's why I like the game so much. I don't know. But yeah, Mall Madness. It was fun when I was a kid. My copy that I owned as a kid is technically still at my mom's. I haven't been able to test it to see if it still works, but I saved it when they were moving out of my childhood home. So I'm going to try and refurbish it if possible, and bring it to Vegas so I can play it again. So that's my number 5, Mall Madness.
My number 4 is Guesstures, which was published in 1990 by Milton Bradley. Guesstures is kind of like charades. There's 2 teams and you're guessing things, but there's a slate board that you put your cards into. So you have cards, and one side of the card is easy and one side is hard. So you decide which side you want, and you get more points for the hard one. And then you put 4 cards into the slate board. And then when you press it down, a timer starts. And as time goes, like the first card will drop. So when that drops, you can't do it anymore. And the second card drops, third card drops, fourth card drops. So you have to do them within time to get the points. So you're trying to do all 4. I think it's like a minute for all 4. And that's it. Yeah,
and if I remember, when you close like the thing on the top of the slate, that's what stops the timer, right? Like when you get... I think that's what happened.
Oh, yeah,
I had this as a kid too. I forgot about this game until you started describing it, but I remember the cards dropping out, and you were always about to grab it out, and it would drop through, and it was like, oh!
Because you'd be across the room doing something, and then you have to run back and get it. But yeah, I really like playing like guessing type games, team guessing games with my family. We'd play 2 versus 2 because family of 4 growing up, and that was a lot of fun. So that's Guesstures, like it's a pun.
My number 4 is something that's not on Ambie's list because she omitted 52 card games, but I had to include it. It is Spades. So Spades is the trick-taking game that I played the most when I was growing up. I did also play Hearts and Wizard and other card games, but Spades is the one that I played a lot. My friends in high school and I would play Spades. Whenever, like, choir class would kind of get done and we would have extra time, we would sit in the back of the room and play Spades. And then when we would hang out on the weekends or outside of school, we played Spades a lot as well. I'm not really going to explain how Spades works. It's a pretty classic trick-taking game where you're bidding on the number of tricks that you and your teammate are going to take collectively. And it's neat because you're not working just by yourself. You get to kind of help your teammate a little bit to some degree because your bids get combined. So it's interesting. I have not played this one in quite a while, but I would be willing to again. So that is why Spades is my number 4.
My number 3 is Clue, which was published in 1949 first. There's a lot of publishers listed, but one of them is Hasbro, and it was designed by Anthony E. Pratt. I've mentioned a lot that I like deduction. Deduction's like one of my favorite mechanisms in games, and Clue is like what I played as a kid and through high school. That's a deduction game. And I still like playing it because I really like the deduction part. And I would play with my parents, and we like write down what everyone's guessing and then like who gave a card so we can deduce things from that. So we would like have our own scratch paper instead of just like the little sheets that they have that they give you with the game. And it would be a lot of fun.
Maybe that's why I'm bad at these games, because I don't take detailed notes, and then somehow I think I know the things, and I never know the things.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, I didn't know what my parents were doing. But then as I got older, then I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you can, like, figure things out. And so it got more fun for me. So that's Clue.
My number 3 is one that I actually just mentioned in, I think, our most recent episode, or the one before that, and that is Rummikub. Rummikub is a gin-style set collection game using tiles, where you are trying to make runs of 3 tiles or more, or sets of 3 or 4 of a kind of specific types of tiles. It actually has a lot of similarities to Mahjong, which you were discussing as a recently played game recently. I played Rummikub at my grandparents' house. My sister and I would play with my grandma and grandpa when we visited them. We played this a lot. Like, I very specifically remember having dinner, and then we would clear off the kitchen table and set up Rummikub and play Rummikub. And it was neat because, you know, it's easy enough that kids can do it, but interesting enough that it's good for adults too. So I still like Rummikub. It was published originally in 1977, designed by Ephraim Hertzano. I would like to play this one again at some point, so that is why it is my number 3.
That was my number 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah. My number 2 is Pictionary, which was published in 1985.
Wow, it's that new, really?
Yeah, I guess.
It feels like it would be older than that for some reason, but I don't know.
Yeah, designed by Rob Angel and published by a bunch of companies again. So Pictionary is a drawing guessing game. And as I mentioned before, I like team guessing games. So in Pictionary, each team you get a word and then you're drawing a picture, and then your team is trying to guess what that picture is and you can't draw like letters or numbers. Because if you draw letters, you just write the word. But
yeah, that does feel like cheating.
Yeah. So I played this a lot growing up. So with our family, so we're like pretty good at drawing quickly, like stick figures and stuff, and getting the point across. And we actually still play it. Like when Toby and I go down and visit, sometimes we play with with my parents, so it's 4 players still.
So do your parents team up and you and Toby team up, or do you kind of mix it up?
We mix it up.
I imagine you and Toby are a pretty good team.
Yeah. Toby's really good at guessing things.
Toby's really good at everything. Like, anyone who has met Toby, he is just like, he's good at everything. And he's like the nicest human on the planet, so you can't even be mad about it. Like, he's just good at everything, and I love him.
In actual Pictionary, I think one team is going at a time most of the time, and the other team is just doing nothing unless they land on an all-play space, because there's different colored spaces that have different categories. And then all-play, all the teams go at once, and they're racing, and whoever gets the answer first gets to roll and move across the board. So we house rule it that it's always all-play. So everyone's always drawing, no matter what the category is, which is a lot more fun, because otherwise one team could just be going all the time. So I would only play it with our house rule, and we do play it with our house rule, because I don't know if I've even played it without that house rule since I've been alive.
But in utero, we played Pictionary by the rules.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe my parents tried it.
And you like tiny baby Ambie was like, no, I don't want to play that way. When I'm bored, we're playing it with the house rules.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's Pictionary. And I think it made my top 100 list last year, too.
Ooh, fancy. My number 2 will not come as a surprise to anybody, and that is the Omega Virus. So the Omega Virus was designed by Michael Gray, who I said earlier also designed Mall Madness. He actually designed a lot of these electronic board games in the late 80s and early 90s. And I was saying off camera to Ambie, I feel like I should try looking him up. I don't know. Oh, it's such a generic name, though. Michael Gray. Like, yeah. It feels like Googling him is going to be difficult, but wouldn't it be neat to talk to somebody like that was designing these unique electronic games? Okay, yeah. Tangent. Sorry. The Omega Virus came out in 1992, and it's an electronic game where you and the other players are all on a space station that has been invaded by a computer virus, and it's going to make the space station explode unless you find and destroy the virus in time. The electronic box is both speaking as the computer virus and as the space station. And the space station is the whiniest thing in the whole world. The whole time you're playing, he's just like, help me! Like, he's just like begging you to assist him, and it's really funny. So you're moving around the board, and what's neat is every player has a secret code that they program into the box at the beginning of the game, and that secret code will help you know where the virus is on the board. So you can technically find the virus before you have all the things to destroy it, and you'll know where it is based on your secret code that it reads out when you're in the room, but then you can go finish collecting all of the stuff and come back and try and destroy it. It is pretty simple as games go, and I actually do house rule the movement in this game a little bit, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I like it a lot. I have been saying for years that I hope that Restoration Games brings this one back at some point. I know it is very high on their list of wants, so we'll see if that happens, but I adore this game, and I still play my original version that I got for my birthday in the early 90s to this day. So that is my number 2, the Omega Virus.
My number 1 is Mahjong, which I mentioned in the recently played, I think, last episode. And
we've had a lot of gin tile-based games around lately.
Yeah. This probably would not have been my number 1 if I hadn't played it again recently, as I mentioned in the recently played. But yeah, I really like it. So it's it's a rummy type game with tiles, and you're collecting sets, and I mentioned you can listen to the last episode where I talk about it.
We were talking in the Slack channel about the fancy table that sorts the tiles and shuffles them for you. Like, that's so cool, but very expensive.
Yeah. I'm not gonna get that. But yeah, so Mahjong is my number 1 now.
Awesome. My number 1 is a game that I played a lot as a kid, and I still play a lot as an adult, and that is Balderdash. So Balderdash was released originally in 1984. Hey, same year I was released. And it was... Is that a person being released? That sounds kind of awkward, but whatever. It was designed by Laura Robinson and Paul Toyne and published by, lots of different publishers over the years. We're not going to try and figure that out. And it's been kind of modified and changed over the years. The original version that I had as a kid, you were making up fake definitions to words. So a word would get presented and everybody would write down a fake definition, and then the real definition would get shuffled in and you have to try and pick the right one. So this is kind of similar. We were just talking about other games like Dixit. Balderdash is kind of one of the original games that did this thing, actually, where you're trying to fool other people into guessing the wrong answer of some kind. But then over the years, they've added different categories to Balderdash, like weird laws and movie plots and acronyms. And so like with the acronym one, like you'd say, okay, the acronym is BLR. And everybody has to write down what they think that acronym means. And the answers you get in this game, I don't know how it happens. Maybe all of my friends are just the most brilliant people, but it is always hilarious to hear what people come up with. And just, you'll listen to the answers and you're like, literally every single one of those is hilarious and could also be true, and I have no idea which one to pick. I love Balderdash a lot. It is great. I still play it pretty frequently. I am happy to have it in my collection, and I recommend this one. If you're looking for a party game, I know this one kind of doesn't make a lot of those lists because it's older, but it is legit and very fun. So I highly recommend Balderdash, and that is why it is my number 1.
Yeah, I didn't actually play Balderdash when I was a kid, but we played the Dictionary game, which is basically we took the dictionary book, which I guess people probably don't have anymore, but flipped through it, found a word, and then that would be the word that we're making up things for. So like one person would see the actual definition and everyone else would make up one.
Nice. So you basically homebrewed your own Balderdash.
Yep.
Awesome. For this week's etymology segment, I am doing something a little different, and it's not etymology in the formal sense, but it's game related and it's kind of etymological, so we're going to go with it. And that is, I'm going to explain the origins of the company name Hasbro. I think most people probably don't know why Hasbro is called Hasbro. Other things like Milton Bradley, a little more obvious. It's a guy's name. His name was Milton Bradley. That's the story. But for Hasbro, it actually comes from the last name of 3 brothers, Henry, Hillel, and Herman Hassenfeld, who founded the company. So it's an abbreviated word that literally just means Hassenfeld brothers. So Hassenfeld brothers.
Oh.
So yeah, they've used the name for their company since it was founded in 1923. And then in 1968, it got shortened from Hassenfeld Brothers to Hasbro Industries. And then in 1985, it got shortened to just Hasbro. So for your and my lives, basically, it's pretty much always just been Hasbro. But it didn't always used to be. So that's where the history of the name Hasbro came from.
And that's it for this week's Board Game Blitz. Visit our website, boardgameblitz.com, for video and blog content, as well as to get links to all our social media pages. This episode was sponsored by Grey Fox Games. After the Empire, an exciting new worker placement and tower defense game, is live on Kickstarter now, so reserve your copy today. Grey Fox Games. Quality games cleverly crafted. If you're enjoying the show, you can rate and review us on your podcast provider, or consider becoming a patron. For as little as $1 a month, you can unlock access to unedited episodes and our private Slack channel, which lets you chat with us and other Blitzketeers directly. Head to patreon.com/boardgameblitz to become a patron today. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Martin. Technical support provided by Toby Mountain. Board Game Blitz is part of the Dice Tower Network. Until next time, for the first time in forever, we both played the same 2 games. Bye, everyone!
Bye!
Because I really like the deduction. And I don't think I explained the game. Okay.
I was going to point it out if you didn't get around to it.
Should I start over?
I mean, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, I think I'll start over.
Okay.
Okay. Until next time. Gosh, I'm out of breath.
That's okay. You've got a lot of things taking up the space where your lungs used to be.
It's like, I used to be able to breathe, but not anymore. Okay.
Alliteration puzzle time, everyone! Shout out to Lit Alliteration on Twitter, Chip Beauvais, for helping us with these alliteration puzzles. Last episode, we asked you to retheme a game about birds for especially strange furry creatures affected by the moon. What game was that, Ambie?
That was Weird Werewolves Wingspan.
I don't know about you, but I kind of want to play that one. All right, so this time around, we are asking you to retheme a set collection tile game for a Jewish teacher who is especially wild. Good luck, everyone!